Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Star Wars: The Deck Building Game. Well, it's here. It has arrived. Is the Force with it? Well, yes and no. Both good ways and bad ways. Let's talk about what makes this game both dark side, light side, and a little bit of everything else in between. Balanced? The Force? Well, not usually, and this game epitomizes that. So let me run it through what you need to know to make sure whether or not this game is right for you. Let's do this. So, before this came out, this was assumed to be a version, a rethematic incorporation of Star Realms, the deck building game. If you're not familiar with that, a 1 versus 1, in this case, Empire versus Rebellion. Start with 10 cards, buy, attack, discard your way to victory. Now, how do you do that in this game? Well, you each have 3 bases in the form of planets that you are given an option of. And you have a variant that allows you to choose how you want to do things. Up to 10 planets per side with this, that each give unique abilities and that each have unique amounts of health along the bottom. And then from this marketplace tableau area in the middle, you'll see that you have cards that are facing both you, your opponent, and neutral, because they're neutral. You can buy your own cards, you can attack the opponent's cards, or you can potentially get the neutrals, winning them over to your side. And you're doing that through the use of the several different icons that are present at the top of the card. You'll see that you have resource icons, then you have cards that will have nothing that allow you to do other things, including wilds, essentially, like this one, the Temple Guardian. And then you have a trooper here that gives you 2 attack. There are also icons that are going to be playing into this flimsy little sort of not really worth it force tracker, which is, this is not well made. But it allows you essentially to move this little tracker across the board, if you will. And if you are on your side, you have the Force with you, and it may influence some of the card play that you're going to do. Buy cards, put them in your discard pile. 5 cards drawn, play 5 cards for the resources that you were shown, rinse and repeat. Where's the nuance? Where's the difference? Well, slightly different ways here, and that goes back to this marketplace that I talked about. Well, you're seeing ships, you're seeing vehicles here in the form of an ATST, you'll see neutral ships, you'll see player characters, as well as capital ships. And the big difference here is you have these capital ships that will go out in front of your planet and essentially act as a blockade. The nice thing is they give you this bonus, whatever in the upper left-hand corner, every single turn they're out there, but they also buffer your planet from taking the initial damage. Otherwise, your characters or vehicles or troops or ships or whatever it may be can just directly attack across the board and knock out the other person's or damage the other person's planet. First one to knock out 3 planets/bases is the winner. They range from health of anywhere from like 8 to 16. So that sounds like a lot, but when you have 3, 4, even all 5 cards in your hand that can do anywhere between 2 to 5 damage, it's not really a lot in a nutshell. And therein lies both the blessing and the curse, right? So let me run you through a quick turn example. I draw my 5 cards from the top of the deck. You can see that I've got a little bit of everything right here. I look at my Tatooine card as my base. It says if I want to swap a card from this row with a card in the Galaxy discard pile, I can do so and gain 1 resource. So if I don't like one of these out there, or there's something really good that got lost from this Galaxy deck, I can then swap it in to be able to buy it. There are also cards that will allow me later just to buy cards from this discard pile in the first place. So knowing what's there is important. But then you can see, okay, I have an Alliance shuttle, which has a transport. It gives me 1 resource. Okay, great. Then I have the Hammerhead Corvette, which gives me 2 resources a turn. I can exile it to destroy an enemy's capital ship in play or on the Galaxy row. So that one gets buffered in front. That gives me 2 resources every single turn that it's out there, not just the turn you play it. And then I have Princess Leia here, who gives me 2 of everything: attack, resource, and force. So we move the force token 1, 2. We'll move the force token 1, 2. If it gets all the way over, I get an extra resource at the beginning of my turn, and I can decide how I want to attack with her. But right now I've got 5 resources. I've got the Snow Speeder as well. My opponent discards a card from their hand, so they would have to do that now. Now I already have 4 attack. And then I actually have Chewbacca here as well, who does another 5 attack. And if I have another unique unit in play, draw a card, which I do because that right there is Princess Leia with the unique ability. So I would draw another card, then I have another Rebel Trooper. I have 2 attack there. So I have a total of 2, 4, 6, 11 attack right there. And I have 2, 4, 5 resources. So 11 attack. I could just do 11 damage to the Death Star here. And so I could do 11 of the 16 damage to the Death Star because my opponent doesn't have any capital ships out in front to be able to block. Or if I wanted to, I could also take out this ATST for 4 as well. And if I did that, you can see that it says here, reward, exile up to 2 cards from your hand or discard pile. So want to thin my deck out, I can do it that way. I can split this however I want. I have to say I'm committing a card to an attack before I decide what it's all going to be. So in this case, yeah, I mean, I probably would want to just do all 11 to the Death Star and say, there you go, boom, these go to my discard pile, there you go. Now I have the other 5. This guy stays out here, this guy goes to the discard pile as well. And so, yeah, I would probably... Boba Fett! Where? Right here, actually. So you have Boba Fett. When he defeats a target in the Galaxy Row, draw a card, which is sort of mixed feelings, right? Like, you don't have as much defeating or benefit sometimes of doing this, but one thing it will allow you to do is say, if you have more attack and you need resources, or if you have enough attack to get other force modifiers, you can do that. But all in all, it's sometimes not as rewarding as going for the other person's base. So that's a little bit of a downside there as well. But that's pretty much the example turn. I put this guy in my discard pile. Then we refill the market row here, and it gets another one of my blockade runners. And then my turn ends. If I make sure I have enough cards here to redraw at the end of my turn, at the beginning of the next turn, so I don't have to reshuffle, and rinse and repeat. This is a very fast, swingy game. 90 cards in this market deck. 90. Between the neutrals, the Rebel Alliance, and the Empire. Just an absolutely massive fanfare of cards that you can see me scrolling through here. Just tons and tons of tons. And that variety is awesome. At the same time, it provokes a very mixed message and mixed feeling, because you can end up with things like this Star Destroyer right on the top and buffer my planet for 7 and get 4 extra attack every single round. Or you can never get that at all throughout the whole deck of your game and have one side get capital ships and one side not, a la my last game with my wife and I, and have it be a little bit more lopsided. And that can leave you feeling a little bit frustrated, like she was. At the same time, did she actually lose by a lot? No, she lost by, less than half of a base's worth of health with one of my bigger bases out there. So it's noticeable, but how much gameplay influence does it actually have at times? Much less than you would think. And I think that's where the criticism is going to be levied and weighed. And you have to look at that and go, does that really matter? And yes, but also not really. The other thing is sort of mixed. Like I said, this force tracker here. You're going to be moving it back and forth depending on the force icons that you can generate. And if you get it all the way to this end or this end, you get an extra resource per turn. Well, so far, it's not as important. The force in Star Wars, not that important, right? That doesn't really click as much, right? Not that that's a bad thing. I don't need that to be the main focus of the game. But thematically incorporating in that sense, it kind of misses the mark a little bit. Yes, it's advantageous. Yes, you will have cards that will help you out more so. Like, oh, if you have the Force, draw an extra card. If you have a Force, do an extra damage. If you have a Force, do this. Discard a card of your choice instead of at random of your opponent's. And, you have the upside down here, for example. So my opponent, if I was the Rebellion here, you can see that I do 4 damage to this ATST, and then I get to exile up to 2 cards from my hand or my discard pile. And, if you're familiar with deck builders, exiling, essentially removing from the game, allows me to trim the excess fat margins of my deck in order to go through it quicker to get the better cards faster. The other interesting aspect is that these capital ships that I mentioned, once you knock them out, they're not gone forever. They just go back in your discard pile. So once you have them bought, they are continually cycling back out, which can be both a boon and a frustration as well, of constant buffering in front of you in the base protection racket, if you will. That's the whole gist of the game. I mean, you have some neutrals here, everything from ships to bounty hunters to outer rim pilots that are basically allowing you to get extra resources to force or exile easier. So that's the flip variant of it. I mean, you've got all of the cool Star Wars things in here, all from the canon universe, and it flows very smoothly. So where do my thoughts end up on this one then, knowing that? It's a heck of a lot of fun. And I think that's probably the overriding fact. If you like Star Wars, if you like deck building, you're going to enjoy this. It is not going to be the most tactical deck builder. It is going to be very swingy. It is going to play very, very rapidly. And what I mean by that is you are going to potentially worry less about resources and more about those guns on the little corners of the thing to do more damage very, very soon. The ramp up to build, shift over to attack mode is very quick. And if it's not more of a sprint for you, you're potentially going to be outgunned, outmanned, and maneuvered, literally speaking, in this game, and you're going to be out of a base. So if you're playing the slow game, if you're playing the long game, if you're playing the Android Netrunner, if you're playing something like that is more of a build-up in those regards, this is not going to be your game. Like I said, it's very fast. It's going to be very take that aggressive style. It's going to reward you for doing that. There is little to no defense, essentially, in this game. And again, that's a boon and a curse. You really don't have a good way, apart from these capital ships sparsely coming up, to block. There is no blocking. There is no I attack, you defend. There is no dice rolling. There is none of that. And that's going to leave people feeling like they want something more out of it. At the same time, I don't necessarily need it either, because it's still a heck of a lot of fun, and there are nuances in this mechanics that are thrown in there, including the keywords that are going to give you upgrades here or there, or the characters that are more of a main attraction, giving you more of a main power. I mean, these purple and these yellow, completely superfluous. Yellow are supposed to be the resource trackers, which you can't even carry over, so I don't really need to keep track of my 4 resources that I earn on a turn with yellow markers. Same thing with the damage. I mean, it's nice, but I mean, I could have any sort of countdown tile or die or anything else to replace them for the base health counters as well, as well as the capital ships. So not really necessary one bit whatsoever. The card stock is meh. And like I said, with the force little flimsy thing, it's, forgettable. But the sum of the parts somehow keep me wanting to play it again and keep me more interested. It's ripe for expansions, although gosh knows I don't know what they would be, right? Because the big criticism being that you've got 90 cards in here already that you're going to see maybe, if you're lucky, a third of in a typical game. And so if you made this any bigger, you're running on Marvel Legendary-esque size setup, teardown, sort of sorting style of issues that I could see really being not as pleasant, because that's part of the fun of this, is it's literally just starter deck, planet, big smack of cards out on the table and go. So I don't know. Are you going to like it? You may not. And I would not be surprised if a lot of people out there are going to buy this based on Star Wars alone and not like it. But it serves its purpose as a 1 versus 1 dueling deck builder that you can also build upon from a franchise side of things. And it's easily recognizable, and the mechanics are smooth enough that this is also going to be teachable to the vast majority of anyone not even affiliated or associated with these types of mechanics in the first place. And again, that can't be understated or underrated as well. So that's why it also is going to stay in my collection, is because I want to see what they do with this. And if they did nothing with this in the future, I'd be very happy with this. Would I like to see more? Would I like to see some more depth, some more strategy, some more nuance, tactically speaking, back and forth to give it a little bit more overall strategic feeling? Sure. Do I need it, though, to be content with the product that I have in front of me? No. And that's surprising because I wasn't necessarily sure where this one was going to fall by the time it ended up on the table. So there you go. Star Wars, the deck building game. Stay classy. Thanks for watching. Short and sweet, because it's a good description of the game, too. Subscribe if you want. See you around. Peace out. Have a great day. Bum 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 bum. It's my 2-year-old's favorite song too. He calls it the Darth Vader song. True story.